Imagine the Australian coastline stretching for over 35,000 kilometres. White sand beaches, warm tropical waters, sheltered bays where the only sound is the tide pulling back across smooth stone. Now imagine owning a home within walking distance of that coastline for less than $300,000. Not a fantasy, not an exaggeration, a reality that thousands of Australians are quietly discovering while the rest of the country watches auction rooms in Sydney and Melbourne push median prices past the $1.5 million mark. There is a conversation happening in retirement communities, in superannuation forums, and in private online groups for over 50s. It is a quiet conversation. Most Australians have not found it yet, but the people who have are signing contracts, loading moving trucks, and waking up every morning to ocean views that would cost $2 million in another postcode. The retirement equation has shifted. Superannuation balances face increasing pressure. Housing affordability in major cities has moved beyond what most working Australians could have predicted 10 years ago. The standard script of staying in a suburban capital and stretching a modest balance across 30 years is failing a growing number of people. The alternative is real and within reach for more Australians than currently realise it. Today, we examine 10 coastal Australian towns where the numbers make sense, where the lifestyle is genuine, and where the question is not whether you can afford to retire there. The question is why more people have not already started asking it. Welcome to an honest look at affordable coastal retirement in Australia. We have studied regional property data and assessed community infrastructure across every town on this list. If you value content that puts verified information ahead of promotional spin, subscribe to this channel now and activate the notification bell. A like supports our independent research. Now, let us get into the towns. Number 1. Geraldton, Western Australia. 600 kilometres north of Perth, Geraldton sits on the Batavia coast with a permanent population just under 40,000. The median house price of approximately $320,000 is, for a coastal city of this size and infrastructure depth, a figure worth serious attention. Retirees arriving from Perth, Sydney, or Melbourne will find that selling a suburban property and purchasing in Geraldton frees up equity in a way that fundamentally rewrites the financial arithmetic of retirement. The climate case is strong. Geraldton averages over 300 days of sunshine annually. Persistent coastal winds moderate summer temperatures and reduce extreme heat events. For retirees managing joint conditions or heat sensitivity, the dry and moderated coastal climate is a health consideration rather than merely a comfort preference. The town has a base hospital with emergency services, a growing network of aged care facilities, and a regional airport with daily connections to Perth. Foreshore redevelopment over the past decade has produced a waterfront precinct with cafes, walking paths, and recreational infrastructure that competes with what much larger centres offer. The honest picture includes candour. Geraldton is a working regional city built around commercial fishing, grain export, and mineral transport. Retirees expecting a boutique coastal atmosphere will find something different. The services are real and the beaches are good, but the social texture is that of a pragmatic regional centre rather than a curated lifestyle town. Therefore, the retiree who values practical coastal living over aesthetic packaging will find Geraldton delivers at a price point nothing on the East Coast can match. Number 2. Esperance, Western Australia. If one town on this list consistently stops people mid-sentence when the beaches are described, it is Esperance. Located on the southern coast of Western Australia, 720 kilometres southeast of Perth, Esperance sits alongside a stretch of coastline that serious travel publications rank among the most spectacular in the world. Lucky Bay, within Cape Le Grand National Park, a short drive from town, appears on global best beaches lists year after year. The sand achieves a white, that photographers describe as impossible to render accurately. The water is a blue-green that seems wrong for this latitude in the best possible way. Median house prices have historically sat between $250,000 and $300,000. Recent growth has shifted values upward, but the comparison remains striking. Beaches of equivalent visual quality in New South Wales or Queensland are attached to properties priced well above $1 million. The Esperance advantage is geographic isolation, and for retirees actively seeking distance from urban density, that isolation is a feature rather than a drawback. Healthcare is the realistic caution every honest assessment of Esperance must include. The town has a district hospital and visiting specialist services, but complex medical requirements regularly mean travel to Perth. Retirees with demanding specialist care schedules must weigh that clearly. What Esperance offers in return is small town community cohesion, excellent fishing and boating infrastructure, and coastal scenery that sits at the very top of what Australia produces. Therefore, for the healthy active retiree who places natural beauty and authenticity above metropolitan access, Esperance makes a case that is very difficult to argue against. Number 3. Port Lincoln, South Australia. Port Lincoln occupies the southern tip of the Eyre Peninsula in South Australia, roughly 650 kilometres west of Adelaide. The town calls itself the seafood capital of Australia, and the claim carries genuine weight. Port Lincoln supplies the majority of Australia's farmed southern bluefin tuna and contributes substantially to the national oyster and abalone harvest. For a retiree who values proximity to premium fresh seafood at market prices rather than restaurant markups, that context is meaningful rather than decorative. Median house prices sit around $280,000. That figure, combined with a protected deep water harbour, reliable air connections to Adelaide, and the broader Eyre Peninsula coastline, makes Port Lincoln one of the stronger value cases on this list. Boston Bay, which the town overlooks, provides sheltered water for recreational boating, and the surrounding peninsula offers some of the cleanest and least crowded beaches in southern Australia. Honesty requires acknowledging what Port Lincoln is not. It is not a growing town. Population has remained broadly stable, which means services are functional but not diversifying quickly. Specialist medical, specialist retail, and cultural programming beyond the existing offering require travel. The drive to Adelaide is long. Therefore, Port Lincoln rewards the retiree who builds independence into their lifestyle, who values natural environment and community connection above metropolitan convenience, and who has made a genuine choice to live beside the ocean rather than simply near one. Number 4. Streaky Bay, South Australia. Streaky Bay sits on the Upper Eyre Peninsula, roughly 500 kilometres northwest of Port Augusta. With a permanent population of just over 1,000, it is the smallest town on this list by a significant margin. Median house prices sit below $200,000. Well-maintained homes with water views are available in some cases below $150,000. These numbers do not exist in most Australian coastal conversations in 2025, and that disparity is worth understanding clearly. The bay provides the experience the town is named for. Streaky Bay's waters are sheltered, warm in summer, and consistently clear. The meeting point of bay and open ocean produces surf and fishing conditions that locals consider among the best on the peninsula. The pace of life here is genuinely slow. There is no performance of lifestyle. People fish, tend their gardens, maintain their boats, and know their neighbours by name. For retirees who measure their ideal retirement not in amenities, but in quiet, that quality is not available in any larger town at any price. The honest limitation is service depth. There is a community health centre, but not a full hospital. Ceduna, roughly 130 kilometres to the northwest, provides the nearest expanded medical facilities. Shopping covers daily needs without much depth beyond. For retirees with active health needs or strong requirements for social variety, the isolation carries real weight. Therefore, Streaky Bay is not a compromise option. It is a specific lifestyle for a specific person prepared to trade metropolitan convenience for coastal quiet that money cannot purchase anywhere larger. Number 5. Bowen, Queensland. Bowen sits on the Whitsunday coast of North Queensland, approximately 200 kilometres south of Townsville. The town shares a coastline with one of the most visited and expensive recreational regions in Australia, yet median house prices sit below $250,000. That gap is not explained by inferior beaches or poor access. It is explained by the absence of the tourism development that transforms comparable locations into premium markets, and by Bowen's ongoing identity as a working agricultural and fishing community. The beaches around Bowen are a genuine and largely undiscovered asset. Horseshoe Bay, Queens Beach, and Rose Bay are quiet, accessible, and of a quality that would command significant premiums if located 3 hours to the south. Coral Sea access delivers strong recreational fishing returns, and the proximity to the Whitsunday Passage gives boating retirees access to extraordinary island waters within a comfortable day. Bowen has a small hospital, basic retail infrastructure, and a functional town centre. Services have not grown at the pace its coastal position might suggest. Queensland government investment in the Whitsunday corridor may push property values upward over the coming decade, a trajectory worth noting for retirees considering lifestyle and long-term asset position. Therefore, Bowen is the entry on this list most likely to represent a genuine opportunity ahead of mainstream awareness, and for the retiree willing to move before that changes. The combination of beach quality, reef access, and current pricing is difficult to match. Number 6. Mackay, Queensland. Mackay is a regional city of approximately 120,000 people, the largest centre on this list, and its infrastructure reflects that scale. The economy is firmly built around the sugar industry and the central Queensland resources sector. What consistently surprises first-time visitors is the extent of the coastal access. Mackay faces the Coral Sea directly, sits at the gateway to the Whitsunday Islands, and is surrounded by beaches including Blacks Beach and Imeo Beach, with outer reef areas accessible by day trip. For a regional city of this size, median house prices around $350,000 represent clear value. The retirement infrastructure case is among the strongest in regional Queensland. There is a base hospital with specialist services, a TAFE, a university campus, strong retail and commercial activity, and aged care facilities proportionate to the city's size. Retirees requiring more than a small town can provide, medically, commercially, or socially, will find Mackay covers most requirements without the cost or density of the southeast corner. The honest critique is that Mackay is a working city, and its character reflects that. The town centre was not designed with retirement lifestyle as its primary purpose. Summer heat and humidity are significant, and the wet season limits outdoor activity in ways some retirees find genuinely challenging. Therefore, Mackay suits the retiree who prioritises full regional city infrastructure and coastal Queensland positioning over boutique lifestyle packaging at a price point the southeast corner cannot offer. Number 7. Port Pirie, South Australia. Port Pirie sits at the top of Spencer Gulf, approximately 220 kilometres north of Adelaide, and it carries a reputation that requires honest examination before anything else about the town is considered. Port Pirie is home to one of the world's largest lead smelters, a facility that has been central to the town's identity for over a century. That industrial presence historically produced air quality and environmental concerns that were serious and extensively documented. That fact should be acknowledged clearly rather than minimized. What has changed also deserves equal space. Substantial investment in smelter upgrades and environmental management over the past decade has measurably reduced emissions. Independent air quality monitoring has recorded consistent improvement, and active government oversight remains in place. The town has undergone genuine regeneration, including foreshore beautification and heritage precinct restoration that has transformed the waterfront into a walkable environment with Spencer Gulf views and well-maintained heritage architecture. Median prices in Port Pirie sit around $170,000 to $190,000. Waterfront-adjacent properties are available at figures that seem implausible in any other Australian coastal context. The town has a hospital, commercial retail, and road access to both the Flinders Ranges and the Southern Eyre Peninsula. The honest position requires personal research rather than a sweeping recommendation. The environmental history demands investigation, not dismissal. But for the retiree who undertakes that research and reaches a considered conclusion, the price point represents coastal access that exists at this level almost nowhere else in Australia. Therefore, Port Pirie is not the right choice for everyone, but for the right retiree, it is an opportunity with very few genuine equivalents anywhere on this continent. Number 8. Batemans Bay, New South Wales. Batemans Bay sits on the Clyde River estuary on the New South Wales south coast, approximately 280 kilometres south of Sydney. Of all the towns on this list, Batemans Bay requires the most careful use of the word affordable. The south coast has experienced substantial price growth over the past decade, driven by migration from Sydney and Canberra. Median house prices now sit around $500,000, the highest on this list. In the national coastal context, this remains below the median, but against the other 9 towns here, this is clearly a relative affordability entry. What Batemans Bay provides in exchange is access. The town sits within 4 hours of Sydney and under 2 hours of Canberra, making it the most connected coastal option on this list for retirees who need to stay within reach of family, friends, and specialist medical services in a major capital. The Eurobodalla coastline is genuinely excellent, with Malua Bay, Duras North, and Murrumarang National Park beaches forming a quality stretch of accessible coastal environment. Services are well developed for a town of approximately 12,000 permanent residents, including a district hospital, solid aged care infrastructure, and an established retiree community built steadily over decades of sea change movement from Sydney and Canberra. The honest caution is trajectory. Values have risen substantially, and the affordability window from 10 years ago has narrowed considerably. Therefore, Batemans Bay suits the retiree arriving with Sydney or Melbourne equity who wants South Coast lifestyle within manageable reach of a capital and who accepts the premium that proximity carries. Number 9. Merimbula, New South Wales. Merimbula sits on the far south coast of New South Wales, approximately 500 kilometres from Sydney and close to the Victorian border. Like Batemans Bay, its affordability is relative, but the extra distance from Sydney has historically kept prices below the more accessible sections of the south coast. Median house prices sit around $450,000, and the town holds the distinct asset of a regional airport with direct connections to both Sydney and Melbourne. The coastal environment is outstanding. The lake system running parallel to the ocean creates a dual water setting unusual in Australian coastal towns. Merimbula Lake, Boggy Creek, and the Ocean Beach all sit within the town's immediate area. Oyster farming is active in the lake system, and the local seafood access is genuine. The Sapphire Coast delivers a natural quality that consistently impresses visitors who arrived expecting modest scenery. The permanent population of approximately 5,000 makes the town manageable in scale. Services include medical facilities, good retail for the town's size, and year-round holiday infrastructure. proximity to the Snowy Mountains and the Victorian border adds recreational variety that purely coastal towns cannot match. Price growth has reached the far south coast as it has reached most coastal regions. Therefore, Merimbula suits the retiree who brings meaningful equity to the purchase, who values dual airport access to two capitals, and who wants a genuine far south coastal lifestyle with the infrastructure to support it over the long run. Number 10. Kalbarri, Western Australia. Kalbarri sits approximately 590 kilometres north of Perth, positioned at the mouth of the Murchison River, where it meets the Indian Ocean. The town adjoins Kalbarri National Park, which takes in dramatic coastal cliffs, river gorges, and the skywalk viewing platforms that have raised the town's profile in recent years. With a permanent population of around 2,000, Kalbarri is compact, and its property market reflects that scale. Median house prices sit between $250,000 and $300,000, with some properties near the river mouth available within that range. The natural environment is the central argument for Kalbarri. The Murchison River Gorge creates a freshwater recreational corridor through the town, and the Indian Ocean coastline provides surf beaches and strong fishing access. The combination of river and ocean in such proximity to a serviced small town is rare in Western Australia, and retirees with interests in fishing, photography, bushwalking, or daily contact with dramatic landscapes will find Kalbarri difficult to rival at this price point. Services are limited relative to the other Western Australian entries on this list. There is a medical centre rather than a full hospital, and Geraldton, approximately 150 kilometres to the south, provides the nearest expanded healthcare. Retail covers daily needs without much depth beyond. The town's economy runs on tourism and fishing, which creates seasonal variation in activity levels. The honest assessment is that Kalbarri is a genuinely beautiful small town with real affordability and a natural environment that justifies serious attention. Therefore, the retiree who has assessed the medical realities and accepted them, who values daily proximity to extraordinary landscapes over urban amenity, and who finds genuine appeal in a small and authentic coastal community will find Kalbarri one of the most compelling arguments on this entire list. 10 towns, 10 versions of the same core proposition. Coastal Australia within reach. The pattern across this list is consistent. Distance from a major capital is the primary driver of affordability. The further a coastal town sits from Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, or Perth, the further a retirement balance extends. That equation is not complicated, but acting on it requires a willingness to challenge the assumption that capital city proximity is a prerequisite for a full and rewarding retirement. These are not substitute options for those who cannot afford better. Esperance has beaches that outperform most of what coastal New South Wales charges a premium for. Geraldton delivers more sunshine than almost any coastal town in Australia. Bowen sits adjacent to a reef system that would carry 3 times the price tag if tourism development had caught up with the geography. The question worth asking is not which of these towns is affordable. The question is, which matches the retirement you are actually trying to build? That depends on health considerations, family proximity requirements, genuine lifestyle preferences, and an honest assessment of what daily retirement life looks like rather than what it looks like in a property listing photograph. What this list shows is that the choice is real. The coastline is there. The communities exist. The price tags are not mistakes. If this shifted your thinking about where retirement could take you, leave a comment and tell us which town caught your attention and why. Subscribe for more content that examines regional Australia without filters or promotional agendas. We will see you in the next one.